there, and welcome back to Don't Open That Door. Come along with our Triumvirate of Terror as we descend into darkness, hurtle into horror, and plunge into peril. If you can stay on beat, you're in the right place. I'm Justin, and organ meat is like really healthy for you.
You would pick organ meat. You fucking would. I'm Nico, and guess what? It's Mambo number 6, y'all.
Well, I'm Dan, and I have 2 left feet.
And we're here today to review Suspiria, the 2018 version. This was directed by Luca Guadagnino, starring Dakota Johnson as Susie / spoilers, Mother Suspiriorum, and Tilda Swinton as half this movie, because she's literally Madame Blanc, Helena Marcos, and Dr. Yosef. We've got Mia Goth as Sarah, and Chloe Moretz as Patricia. Let's get down to business. But we're not going to defeat the Huns. We're actually in 1977 Germany, a very different time from ancient China.
Although there were a lot of walls in occupied Berlin.
I couldn't help but notice that. We have Patricia, a dancer at the Marcos Dance Academy, who is a patient of Dr. Yosef. She tells Dr. Yosef that a coven of witches runs the dance academy. Dr. Yosef, who is played by Tilda Swinton, thinks that she's delusional, and Patricia flees from his office. We now switch over to Susie, a young woman from the good old USFA. But she's not here to do any post-war damage. Unlike the rest of the country, gunshot, no.
Really oddly timed take there, Justin. In 2024.
She's actually here to audition for the dance academy. She danced good, so they asked her to join up. Nico, what happens next?
While all this is going on, it turns out there's an actual coven of witches. Who'da thunk it? At the Tanz Dance Academie, same one from the first movie, would you believe it? And they're voting to see who's going to be their new leader. Much like America, the witches only have 2 choices. Yo, this is too real. Madame Blanc or Madame Marcos. Marcos takes the vote, and that's that. We now get to Susie's first day, and she witnesses one of the students basically quit, in fewer words than that, and leave the academy. Luckily, or not, Susie gets to take her place. Unfortunately for the dropout, Madame Blanc puts some kind of spell on Susie, and her dance actually inflicts crazy amount of damage on the previous girl and folds her up like a contortionist. It is brutal. Then the other witches show up with meat hooks and drag her away. Like they couldn't just do that already from the jump when she looked like a fucking broken accordion of a person. But okay.
Yeah, well, if you ever do need a meat hook, you can always go to Dan. Dan, what happens next?
Well, while all this is going on, Susie meets another girl, the charismatic Sarah. Sarah is worried about the 2 missing girls, and she enlists Susie to help her. Susie kind of helps, but becomes more entranced by Madame Blanc as the 2 go closer, and Susie ends up becoming the lead in the Academy show. Sarah meets up with Dr. Yosef, who's played by Tilda Swinton, and he tells her that she might want to check and make sure that there are no secret passages or halls in the school.
Well, I'm thinking now about who might have played Dr. Yosef, but to get back to what you were saying,
Was
Dan,
it Charlize Theron?
Almost. I got it. I think I got it, though. So, first off, there totally are secret halls and passages in the school.
Who'da thunk it?
Sarah sees a bunch of like some witch-ass statues and things, and she runs back to Dr. Yosef, played by Tilda Swinton, with a literal fucking meat hook in her hands. Tilda Swinton decides that maybe it's time to look into this academy a bit more.
There's a meta-narrative where the actor Tilda Swinton.
We have to change all character names to actor names now.
Oh, sweet fucking Lord, that would be impossible to review.
Meanwhile, back at the academy, it's time for the big show. Sarah slips away and finds the 2 missing girls withering away in a secret room. She flees, but the witches are onto her, and they literally make her break a leg. Then they fix her up, hypnotize her, and send her out to join the rest of the dance troupe. Nico, I'm assuming that works.
Give me a break. Give me a break. Break me up a piece of that ballet, girl.
Either one works.
So, it really doesn't work out so hot in general because Susie goes kind of way off script, which ruins the witch's spell, and Sarah falls to the floor in pain. That night, Madame Blanc and Susie have a telepathic conversation, and Susie...
Time bewitching incense.
They needed some of that. They
Yeah.
needed
really
that.
did. Yo, if only Tilda Swinton was in Bloodlust.
She could also have played the role of Vampire Hunter D. And
yeah,
and
she
the
would
other
fucking
chick.
kill it.
Yeah.
Like, honestly. Anyway, fuck, where did I? Right, the telepathic conversation. And after the telepathic conversation, Susie apologizes for everything that happens. Everything that happened, rather. The following night, the dance troupe have a celebratory dinner. Obviously, without one of them. While this is happening, Dr. Yosef, who is played by Tilda Swinton, who is also at the show, I have to mention it was Dr. Yosef, not Tilda Swinton at the show. But anyway, Dr. Yosef is lured by a witch posing to be his dead wife, and he gets kidnapped. Oof. So as it turns out, Susie was being groomed the whole time to be a new vessel, no sleep token though, for the dying Madame Marcos. And they're going to do the ritual tonight.
All right. Well, it sounds like the clock is ticking. Dan, when is
Time's
tonight?
ticking fast.
Tonight is tonight. It's now.
Don't know how
and,
long
well-
she'll last.
The ritual is underway. Susie shows up, but she seems a little different. Madame Blanc notices this, but Madame Marcos chops
Who's
off.
she played by again?
Oh, yeah, Madame Blanc is played by Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton.
Okay.
Damn, that's just going to get the rest of this even more confused now.
Yeah.
Anyways, she notices this, but Madame Marcos chops her head halfway off and then realizes a horrible truth. You see, Susie isn't some innocent girl from America. She's actually the latest incarnation of Mother Suspiriorum. Yeah.
Yeah.
An ancient badass witch from pre-Christian times. Susie then slaughters Madame Marcos and all of her supporters, leaving only those who supported Madame Blanc, aka Tilda Swinton.
Fair enough.
Susie also erases Dr. Yosef, aka Tilda Swinton's memories,
Yes.
so he/she isn't traumatized anymore.
Fair enough.
The
All
movie
right.
ends with the women at the dance academy being informed that Madame Blanc, aka Tilda Swinton, has left the building. The end.
I do want to add there is a post-credit scene, but it's literally Susie / Mother Superiorum just staring at something and doing a little hand motion, possibly writing a new role for Tilda Swinton.
I actually
Either
didn't
way.
know that.
Yeah. It's 20 seconds. But either way, let's go ahead and chop things up, shall we? First,
Aha.
how does this movie look? I'll go ahead and take the lead on this one. I think for looks, it's pretty good. There's one big thing, but I want to save it for when we compare this to the original version. That aside, it's got a kind of wintry gray kind of look to a lot of it. Things are often dismal. There's not really splashes of color with the exception of the very end scene where it's like, first off, it's modern times. Didn't realize that without some help. But it's kind of gray. That's the only way I can describe it. Dan, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this movie is dark. It's definitely gray. Like Justin said, there's a lot of precipitation happening.
Yeah.
In almost every scene, when we get outside or can see outside through a window or something, it's raining or snowing or something.
And even inside, they're pissing themselves sometimes.
That did happen once. But it's not,
Sure.
notably, it is not raining maggots like in the original.
Thank
Original.
fucking
Yeah.
God.
But anyways, I like the cinematography. I thought there were some really cool shots. This movie is a little artsy, I think, sometimes.
Very.
And I actually kind of liked that. I don't think it strayed too far into art house, but was enough for me to appreciate. And I thought that was pretty cool.
All right. Nico, what did you see?
So I want to echo what you both have said, but with a particular focus on the cinematography. I feel like this was shot like a movie from the 70s, which is both sort of fitting in terms of the legacy of the movie, but also literally that, obviously the time it takes place. And I really love how they stayed on some shots that you wouldn't necessarily expect, or there would be a lot of frantic cuts that showed the sort of background and brought it into the foreground. And by the background, I mean like the influence of the witches and the various elements that are being referenced that we don't get to see or have their own scenes necessarily, which for a movie that's 2.5 hours, you'd think they would find a way. But like in particular, I'm thinking about one of the times where we see Susie have a flashback to her times living with her Mormon, I think it was, family out in Ohio. Mennonite, that's it, sorry. But going back to that, there's a flashback to when she was living there, and we see her like in flashes getting punished for basically pleasuring herself, more or less, and like she gets an iron shoved into her hand. And it's a really interesting way to sort of show the themes, just like butterfly effect, not butterfly effect, but like shutter speed in front of you with flashes throughout the film. And I don't see a lot of different movies do that.
Dan, what did you think about the sound?
So soundtrack was, I don't want to compare too much to the original because we're going to talk about that, but it was very different than the OG.
I'm glad it was.
Yeah, the OG had music done by the band Goblin.
Mm-hmm.
And this film actually had very little soundtrack. I actually thought there was a lot of silence and a lot of Foley instead of soundtrack. And then some of the soundtrack, actually, a lot of it was actually just what the music they were dancing to was, and not actually like film score. Now, there was some film score. I'm not saying there's complete nothing, but it was a lot less than a lot of modern movies.
I would say as well, the parts that were there, like the actual scored parts that weren't just the dance parts, it was interesting because to me what stuck out is they would incorporate like orchestra stuff, but also with synth. There's one scene in particular where they're outside and it's night, and I think it's one of the times they're heading to the bar or they're standing outside the bar. It's called like Paris Bar or something, which is ironic because they're in Berlin. And they basically like, there's this interesting, it stuck in my mind because I was like, oh, there's a synth. Oh, wait, there's like a violin or something. And I was like, oh man, these are blending. Actually, I never heard something like this before, the way they blend together. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But Nico, what'd you think about the sound?
Yeah, I will say for the times that the soundtrack did play, while minimal, I thought they were just like really, really good. And funny enough, the music was written by Tom York, which I
really?
was
I
not
didn't know
expecting at all. But I was a big fan of just the overall sense of dread and I can't really think of a better word, but just like the sense of brief moments of dread that the soundtrack played into. And while it was minimal, it definitely worked.
So I want to ask real quick. This movie is one of those where it takes place amidst. And it takes place amidst the actual real life historical hijacking of a airplane in Germany back in 1977. And it also takes place, because it's in 1977, in the kind of post-World War II, post-Holocaust years. Do you think that setting, do you think it serves a heavy purpose in the film or not?
I don't know. I kind of struggled to see the relevance of because they often cut to or bring up scenes from the news and things like that about the airplane situation, the RAF political situation going on there. And I personally wasn't able to connect that to the whatever theme or the plot or anything. I just missed that whole part. I didn't dislike it necessarily, but I'm sure there's way more going on there than I realized.
Me personally, I did dislike it. I thought this movie had a very self-indulgent runtime. And first off, I also couldn't really link the hijacking to what was going on. It almost seemed like they just wanted to be like set amongst this backdrop, which sure, that's fine if you want to do that. But then they like would spend time going into it. And I'm like, I don't think it serves a purpose personally. Secondly, there's the story of Dr. Yosef, which we didn't cover super intensive, but basically, to my understanding, he was a German man who married a Jewish woman. And then during, the Holocaust, he tried to get her out. They got separated and he never found out what happened. We, the audience, find out that she ended up getting caught, sent to a concentration camp, and she dies.
He finds that out too.
Well, he does find it out, but then he forgets. But like not of his own volition.
True.
Susie, aka Mother Suspiriorum, she kind of deletes the memory from him so that way he can live a happy life for whatever years he's got left. I don't know why that is here in the movie, except for like one line where they talk about guilt. But outside of that, like, man, I struggle. I don't think that was necessary at all. Like, I straight up just think Dr. Yosef could have been just that. Like, he could have just played his role as a therapist or whatever it is he was. And to me, that would have been perfectly fine. I think this is like a 2.5 hour long movie, and a big chunk of that is dedicated to this backdrop that I don't really think is necessary. Nico, thoughts?
I got a little something out of it, but I'm not entirely sure how confidently I feel about it. I think that in Cards on the Table, I am not as well read on the actual events of the history of it all. I'm only going off of sort of thematic connections here for what I'm about to say, but I think it serves to... You're right, it is like taking place amidst that conflict. I think it is meant to serve one of the potential themes that, like, I think it might be about trying to portray political violence as an overt way to link what is happening in the cult to what is going on in the real world, almost in like showing power struggles, right? The whole movie is about power struggles. And there is a surprise defeat from within, from, like Mother Suspiriorum, and then just the whole events of the plane hijacking itself was another form of sudden political violence, that it was a dramatic turn of events away from the norm, kind of signaling maybe some sort of transferal in power. But again, like, I'm not as well read as I should be, and again, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about making that sort of thematic link, but that's the best I've got.
Yeah, and I'll just repeat what I said on a previous podcast. Just because you touch something that's a sensitive topic or a deep topic, I think if you can't properly allot the time to serve that and to properly explore it, I would almost rather you didn't. And
sure,
that to me is kind of how I feel. Because, I mean, it's almost kind of like, you remember, this also was a German flick, but God damn it, it's the one with the Nazis.
Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga. And I was like, what the fuck was the point of that? And that's kind of how I feel about this. I'm like, sure, like you could maybe draw a parallel somewhere, but was it necessary? No. And I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about it. Plus, again, it's a long ass movie. So carrying on, we talked about maybe some potential themes. Are there any other themes you might think of? Maybe even the L word.
Luigi.
I think motherhood and family is a big one. These girls go to the dance academy and they find family there and become family. And there are some power struggles, but in similar fashion to what families can go through sometimes. There's also, Susie is told that during the transfer of power near the end, Madame Marcos, I think, tells her that
Who's
she has
played by
to...
who?
Madame Marcos is played by Tilda Swinton.
Okay,
right. Okay.
No,
Cool.
no, she's not. No, she's not.
Yes, she is.
Oh, yeah, she is.
She...
No, I thought it was Madame Blanc.
She is also played by
also Madame Marcos.
I thought there was only one Madame. No, there's two Madames.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So Tilda Swinton tells her that...
Tells Tilda Swinton.
Yeah. No. Tell
No, not in
Susie.
that scene anyway. But Tilda Swinton and Tilda Swinton do argue at one point.
No, let me do you one better, Nico. Tilda Swinton kills Tilda Swinton while Tilda Swinton watches.
Holy shit, you're right.
Yeah, oh yeah. Madame Marcos does kill Madame Blanc.
While Dr. Joseph is in the background.
Yeah.
Holy shit. It is a literal triangle, a triumvirate of Tilda Swinton.
That's got to be a theme there somewhere. There's got to be a point to that.
And don't get it wrong, right? Don't get it wrong. Oh, I should say for the listeners real quick, we do get a quick shot which shows that Madame Blanc is actually still alive.
Yeah.
Because they like pick up her head. It's not detached all the way, and they pick up her head and she like blinks and looks up. So they could probably get some super glue on that and get her back in like a couple years. But either way, carry on what you were saying with the themes.
Tilda Swinton tells Susie that she has to basically kill her mom, and there can only be one
like,
mother
I bet.
family. Yeah, she's like, all right, cool, I will.
She's so fine with it.
Yeah. But that's also like leaving your old family behind and embracing the new family. So I think family/motherhood is a big part of the themes here.
Yeah, I would say for me, one thing that I definitely think sticks out is rebirth, because the witches hope to be reborn, specifically Tilda Swinton. And Tilda Swinton is kind of opposed to that, playing Madame Blanc, because she kind of works through dance, and the witches do channel their power through dance. But for me personally, it also makes sense because Susie is also reborn, because for whatever reason, she was naturally born. She didn't need a vessel.
For whatever reason. It was a natural birth.
Yeah.
Who could have seen that coming?
Look, man, all I know is that made sense to me. But Nico, you got any meat to pick off these bones?
I mean, so here's a connection I didn't see myself coming up with, but I think this is an oddly optimistic cult movie, kind of in a similar way to Midsummer almost. And I want to put heavy air quotes over optimistic, but like Susie is reborn, as you've said, into Mother Suspiriorum, but she has the potential to reform the cult and find happiness and break away from this cycle of violence. Just kind of like how Danny has the potential to rebuild her life, even though she's, again, in a murder cult.
I don't know that I would say she breaks away from the cycle of violence. I mean,
She straight up kills everyone.
I mean, like, after that.
well, we don't know that. I mean, she's literally the reincarnation of an evil witch. So it's not like she broke this cycle of violence and there's no evil anymore. Like, she is one of the most evil beings in history.
Yeah.
In history?
Yeah, dog. And don't forget,
So-
she also summoned like death.
Yeah.
Really? Wicked
Yeah, what do you think
Bong?
that thing was? She summoned to come up and like kiss Tilda
Oh, yeah,
Swinton.
that was death.
Yeah.
That was just like death personified.
Yeah.
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 Yeah!
But Justin, you mentioned the L word, and I wrote that in our notes because
Luigi!
I did want to bring that up. So I went back and listened to our review of the OG.
Mhm.
And one thing that we
Likewise.
brought up was Dario Argento in the OG film, director of the OG one. He said that there was a theme of lesbianism throughout the film. And I think all three of us disagreed with it. And we're like, okay, maybe in a different, that word maybe means something in different context 50 years ago or whatever. But
Damn, that was 50 years ago. That's crazy.
yeah, and you said that in the last episode too.
Oh,
Last review
shit.
too.
I guess I'm fucking consistent.
Yep. But do we see that kind of that theme of lesbianism in this adaptation of it as well?
I mean, like,
That was a noise.
there's a scene where they're in the
Need
bar
subtitles
where,
for that one.
Yeah.
where like two of them, the dancers, I mean, or maybe they're witches, I'm not sure. They kind of look at each other. They kind of like look into each other's eyes. But, and I think I do see him lean into Kiss. So like they might have some, like lesbian people within the cult or within the dancers.
I definitely expected Sarah and Susie to kiss at some point.
You fucking perv. How dare you?
How dare
Through
you?
the cinematography that you just outlined and the direction the actors took. They, again, dear listener, Justin just fucking outlined.
Nah, he just wanted to see Mia Goth making out with the chick
Dakota
from 50 Shades
Johnson.
of Grey.
I mean, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hear me now. I don't think lesbianism is necessarily an overt theme. Maybe you can look and you can see some of it. I know there's a moment where they're like in the bed and she's like, I've only ever been in the bed with my sister. And she's like, I'm your sister now. And she says it in a British accent. I don't know why.
She does it just like that, Justin.
Can't quit you.
But yeah, nah.
I don't really see it either. And yeah, you guys pointed out one or two scenes that maybe there's a little bit of lesbianism, but just because it's in the movie doesn't mean that it's a theme, I think. So I don't really see it in this. And not that there has to be this. It was just something that I remember from last time, seeing if they did it this time.
Yeah, like, this isn't a sex movie or a movie about sex. This is a movie about women. And that doesn't necessitate lesbianism, which, I mean, I don't want to get into an overly long theoretical discussion, but suffice to say, I just don't see it, Chief. I don't see it.
I will put a combo breaker in that to just turn everyone straight off, because we have
Pause.
the dying Mother Marcos,
Right?
who is like 1,000 years old, and her flesh is now like, she's also
With the pussy in a sarcophagus.
no, and her flesh is just like decomposing, and she's just got like blobs of decomposing flesh all over her. And when people start to get disemboweled, she kind of starts to play with herself. And I'm like, hey, yo, yellow card for that one movie. That was foul.
Literally.
Yeah. And then Susie, when they, being Tilda
She also
Swinton,
kind of had a Joker smile.
we're okay with that. And
Oh, all right.
Hey,
Tilda
bro,
Swinton-
bro,
what?
this is uncanny, bro. Because in that last review of the OG, you guys were talking about how you were helping Bohi move and met dude with like
Oh,
Joker
shit.
smile.
Bro.
telling you, man, certain words attract other words. And speaking of, Madame Blanc, Tilda Swinton, asks Dakota Johnson how the dancing made her feel. And Susie replies, like I'm fucking, or like something like that. And she's like, oh, like you're fucking a man? No, an animal. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then, yeah, that's it. That's like the most overtly.
She says like an animal, not an animal. There's no bestiality in this. Justin.
Are you sure about that?
100% yes.
I'm going to have to go back and look up that script.
I'm with Nico on that one.
Thank you, Dan. Your support is always appreciated.
Listen, whatever they said, that's what I heard.
Well, we know where your mind's at.
Let's not go down that road. All right.
Insert your favorite Trent Reznor song here, folks.
We've talked a lot about it. Let's go ahead and get it out in the open now. The original and this. How different is it, would you say?
It's hard to say, like, how much percentage-wise, but in terms of presentation, a very goddamn. Like, the first one is more of, like, a visual experience than a coherent film, and this one is much more of a movie than perhaps hour and a half visual acid trip.
I would say very goddamn, like Nico just said, but not just in terms of the presentation. I would say the main character, a totally fucking different character.
Yeah.
The Witch's Coven, totally different. Portrayed totally differently.
This is a remake like Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake of the OG, which, to be
Yes.
clear, if you don't play video
Yeah, I
games,
agree.
it's kind of like a reimagining of the original with little tweaks and nudges at different spots as opposed to a one-to-one, like, exact analog.
I would go so far as to say, man, if they weren't at a dance school, like if they changed the location from a dance school to like a, I don't know, all woman college or something like that.
Yes. From one school to another school.
Yeah, what?
Well, I mean, just like if they weren't at a dance academy, I would say
You want
this
them
has
to
almost.
be College of Dance Bards from the New Player's Handbook, available September 17th?
Wait, are you talking about for that new edition that's not 5th edition?
Yeah, like 5.24 or whatever the shit.
Yeah, good on you. Either way, I would just say that this has very little, once you get down to the real storyline, to do with the actual original. It's very, very, very different. So if you don't like this one, believe me, the original's still there and it's a different movie. It's not going to color your thoughts or anything. But Dan, what are your thoughts?
So I actually kind of like this interpretation. I mean, it is very different in both presentation, and a lot of the themes and things are similar yet different. And I actually kind of liked that because I don't know that the original needed to be remade in like the same way, just modern. So
Right.
I thought this was a cool modern take on that. Well, changing the things that I don't want to say should have been changed, but changing things to make it for the more modern audience. And I actually really like that. I mean, the visuals, we have said, were very dark for this, very bright, vibrant, colorful for the original. The music was very eclectic for in the original and not nearly as much in this one. Yeah, there's a ton of differences.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this final thing. How'd you feel about the twist at the end, so to speak, where it's revealed that Susie is the reincarnation of Mother Superiorum?
Suspiriorum.
What did I say?
Superiorum.
I was thinking if you got a potion of Superiorum healing, that might heal you by like
Couple D20s maybe.
TBD. But yes, you're right, Nico.
Nerds.
When we reveal Susie's true form, I mean, how'd you feel about that? Did it hit just right?
It kind of did. I love the genre that I've described a number of times on here as the good for her horror movies, of which I would again include like Midsummer and The Witch, of course. And it's just a really dramatic scene, and just what a fucking climax, man. The one thing that I will say is I was a little confused as to why we started to make the cinematography much more choppy there of all scenes. I would have thought that you would want the most sort of visual fidelity during the climactic bloodbath, but I don't know, that's just me.
That was your confusion? I thought when you had Dr. Yosef walking through the snow
Who's
at like
played by
0.1,
Tilda Swinton.
yeah, at like 0.1 frames a second, I thought we were about to go into like a rap music video or something like that. Like he was about to start talking about back in the days.
Michael Knight. Michael Knight.
Dan, as you were going to say.
To your question, I guess, Nico, I thought that it became more cuts and more frenetic because that part of the film was much more frantic and crazy. So the cinematography to me reflected the feeling and the emotion that you were supposed to feel, or that they wanted you to feel, I guess.
Yeah.
I really liked her becoming Mother Suspiriorum. I thought it was pretty cool. It was a good little twist. Again, different from the original. That didn't happen in the OG, and I wasn't expecting it because of that. And I mean, cards on the table, that was my favorite scene. I thought it was really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually not big into like witch coven kind of movies and stuff, but that scene just really got me. I thought it was really dope.
What did y'all think about the scene where Olga presses shuffle on the bones in her body? Or I guess Susie presses shuffle on the bones in Olga's body.
I thought it was cool. I thought it lasted too long though.
I thought it lasted too long, but it was the best idea in the movie.
I thought it was a perfect amount of time. Like, I think it was purposely lengthened to really show you her agony.
Yeah.
But I also just, like, there's something very visceral about hearing a bone break and then seeing the skin start to darken in purple and hue with the bruise, that's almost, I think, a little more visceral than if it just comically pops out of the skin like in a cartoon. So that just seemed, I don't know, just more painful than it perhaps. I don't fucking know. I just really like that scene.
So, I didn't like the twist. And I will tell you why. This movie was a movie that I changed opinions on the most of any movie that we reviewed on this podcast.
Really?
I went into this movie with bright eyes and full expectations. And an hour in, I was like, okay, I can get down with this. Like, it's a little artsy maybe. And then, like, as the movie went on, I was like, man, shit is just fucking happening to happen at this point. The cuts are so fucking hard. Just like, things go here, things go there. What the fuck is going on? And then just like, I don't know, man. I thought, and they like, it was like they tried to do so much in the movie that the runtime becomes bloated. And even then I thought the story wasn't as concise as it could have been. I feel like this film needed a really good editor. And I'm angry because I do like the story. And I do like the concept of the movie. And I do think they had great visuals and great sound. And there's so much good about this movie that I like. And I would have loved this movie. I was ready to call Nico bleeding about how good this movie was. And then the second half happened and I was like, man, because I really wanted to like this movie. And yeah, I just didn't like the ending because I just felt like, yeah, it kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm sure if you go back and look at it some more, sure. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I just felt like it was undeserved. Speaking of something undeserved, it's time for the What Would You Do? And you might be wondering, what could I ask? Well, here we go.
I mean, Dakota Johnson, yes.
If you were an ancient witch or warlock or whatever you want to be, she is like the mother of sighs. That's her kind of little title she's got. What would your title be?
Ooh, that's a good question. Father of nobody, because I'm not having any goddamn kids.
Fair.
Okay. Dan, you got anything?
I don't know, man. I gotta think on that. I gotta ponder it.
All right, you ponder for a sec. I think my title would have to be The Reminiscent Poet. And just like whenever my dude gets reborn, I just like go to some place and be like, you know, back in the days, I used to do this. They'll be, how's that possible? Oh yeah, like I'm like totally all powerful and shit. You gonna like fight? No. I'm just gonna reminisce.
So you're
here
the
for a little
Dalai
bit.
Lama?
Oh. I would have been like, yo, man, I'm gonna just go to like the German forest and chill out. I wouldn't even be in Berlin. Haven't been in that city since I broke my heart. You feel me, bro?
You'd be Burlout.
Oh. Well, Dan, why don't you bury up with them banter because I'm waiting to hear your title.
I feel like I'd be like the Lord of Towers or some shit.
Oh,
I'm so tall.
Shit.
Oh,
that
shit.
goes hard.
Yeah.
Lord of Towers? Fuck.
Yeah.
Fucking Dark
There's a
Soul ending over
fancy
here.
novel.
Yep.
Well, enough of that. Let's get over to the critic review. What do you guys think this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
So I know a little bit about, I know that this did really fucking poorly in the box office, not work.
In the office, they just couldn't photocopy. Get out of here, Suspiria 2018.
I'm going to guess it did pretty poorly, but has since come up a little bit. So I'm going to guess like 62.
I guess 73.
Dan wins.
Yes.
Hey!
We're sitting at a critic rating of 72.
Oh, damn. That was close.
Yeah. Audience a little bit less enthusiastic with the 65. And for whatever reason, it just showed up on the right-hand side. Joker has a 69%.
Hey, Lamau.
Either way, what would you give this movie as a rating?
I really like this movie. It is dense, in a word. And I fuck with the themes. I fuck with the cinematography. I fuck with the soundtrack. I do think that it has its flaws and that at times the storytelling is a bit clunky. But on the whole, I really liked it. I'm going to give it an 86.
I also liked it quite a bit, actually. The first half, I'm kind of the opposite of Justin. I thought the first half was a little boring for me, maybe, but the second half, I got a lot more interested. Again, like Nico said, it's not without flaws. I do think that it does run a little long. I think it can still be a longer movie, but maybe chopping 20 minutes off, I think would help me a lot.
Yeah.
The plot does kind of move along sometimes, and you're like, oh, wow, how did we get here? But I didn't actually mind it so much, but I enjoyed the cinematography. I actually liked a lot of it. I'm going to give it a 82.
I really like this movie. I have discussed the reasons why at this point, but I just am mad, like I said, because I feel like this could have been so much better. This is almost kind of like, you ever see those pictures where it's like, it'll be a horse and it's like the front of the horse is like super beautiful and then the back is like a stick figure some kid made.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how I feel about
Often
this
for
movie.
like different seasons of a show.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. Like that last scene, if I had seen that scene just entirely out of context, I'd be like, oh, that's a really cool scene. And there's some really cool horror moments in this movie. But on the whole, I just think this is kind of a bloated mess. It's in severe need of editing. The plot needs to be tightened up like the fucking handle on my door outside. And
Real.
all I can say is I wish it was better. So a 60 for me.
So, trivia time.
Oh,
What do you think we gave, or not trivia, but what do you think we gave the OG? So I wrote down
Gosh.
our scores.
I must have given it like a 65.
I think I gave it a 68.
So I gave it a 48. Justin, you gave it a 56.
Okay.
And Nico, you gave it a 79.
Okay.
So we all do like this one better than the original.
Huh. Go figure.
I will say I'm pretty close to my score. But would we recommend this one?
Yes.
I think I would.
I wouldn't. And I'm pretty sure that on the original, I don't think I recommended that either, but I said for its place in the pantheon of horror, check it out. And I don't think this even reaches that, so no for me.
Fair.
Fair enough.
And with that, it's not going to be eligible for any other awards, so it is what it is. And you know what? I'm ready for the hate.
I don't think you're going to get very much on this one, honestly.
Yeah, I'm actually not too far off from where it's on Rotten Tomatoes anyways. So we are on X and Instagram at DOTD Horror. We're also on Facebook. That's Don't Open That Door. Plus, catch everything we've ever done on our website, which is, of course, dotdhorror.com. Give us a like. Give us a review. Give us a drawing of Nico. We're here for that.
You've never seen him, but draw him based on what you think he looks like.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this.
So yeah, dear listener, always remember, look out for one another. If you do happen to break into like a secret coven of witches, don't steal the meat hook. And as always, dear listener, don't open that door. Bye.